I always thought love was something you earned. That if you gave enough, cared enough, stayed quiet enough, your place in someone's heart would eventually be permanent. But standing in front of my parents' home, the one I helped save from foreclosure, I was starting to wonder if I'd ever really belonged in this family at all. My name is Melanie Carter. I'm the oldest of 2 daughters. I'm 33, single, and the kind of person people call when everything's falling apart. My parents raised us in a modest colonial-style house on the outskirts of Savannah, Georgia. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. My dad, a retired electrician, and my mom, a school secretary, worked their fingers raw to pay it off. Or so I thought. My sister, Courtney, is 4 years younger and the opposite of me in every way, bubbly, loud, always the center of attention. She got the praise, I got the responsibility. She got cheered for making cheer captain, I got reminded to take the chicken out the freezer. But I never resented it. I figured we all had roles to play. Mine just happened to come with bills and silence. 2 years ago, I got a call from my mother while I was in the middle of leading a quarterly budget meeting for the healthcare company I work at. Her voice was shaking. "Mel, honey, the bank sent us a letter. We're 3 months behind." I remember how the room around me faded into static. My co-workers' voices blurred. I asked how much. She whispered it like it was shameful, $57,800. I covered it without blinking. I had savings. Not a lot, but enough. I wired the full amount, added a little extra for late fees, and told her not to worry. "You'll pay me back when you can," I said, even though I knew they never would. I told myself I didn't care. I did it because I loved them. Because I couldn't imagine our childhood home falling into the hands of some bank. That house was where we had birthday parties and sick days and movie nights with burnt popcorn. It was more than wood and bricks. It was the center of everything I still wanted to protect. At first, my parents were grateful. My mom cried on the phone, calling me her angel girl. My dad even hugged me, something he hadn't done since I was 12. But slowly, the gratitude faded. It was like once the fire was out, so was the memory of who held the hose. They never brought it up again. No mention of the loan, no talk of repaying even a fraction. I didn't mind the silence until I saw what filled it: Courtney. She had moved back in just for a few months, she said. That was 8 months ago. She wasn't working. She wasn't paying rent. She had her car in the driveway, her clothes in the guest room, and somehow, her name on every family conversation. They cooked her favorite meals. They watched her shows. They gushed about her new Etsy shop even though she hadn't made a single sale. I was still paying the property taxes. Still covering their internet. Still driving over on weekends to mow the lawn when Dad's arthritis flared up. And yet, when Courtney posted a selfie with Mom and Dad and captioned "It couldn't survive without my #ridiots," I wasn't even tagged. The first time I said something, it was casual. "Courtney still hasn't found a job." My mom looked at me like I'd insulted a priest. "She's just figuring things out. You know how hard it is for creative people." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her that I worked for everything I had, and I still showed up for them. But I didn't. Because good daughters don't scream. They stay polite. They keep writing checks. They keep hoping someone will notice. My therapist, yes, I finally got one, asked me, "Why are you still trying to win a race no one's timing?" I didn't know how to answer. Maybe because I thought love had to be earned. Maybe because I was scared of what it would mean if it wasn't. It all came to a head the day I overheard Courtney talking on the phone. I had stopped by to drop off groceries again, and the front door was slightly ajar. I heard her laughing. "No, seriously, if anything happens to them, I think the house goes to me. They'd never let Mel have it, she's so uptight." She giggled. My stomach dropped. She was in my parents' house, the one I saved, talking about how it would be hers. Like I was some bitter aunt, not the daughter who kept the roof from collapsing. I didn't even go inside. I got back in my car, drove home, and sat in silence for 2 hours. That was the moment something broke. Not out of anger, but clarity. I'd spent my whole life giving, hoping that one day they'd look at me the way they looked at her. But maybe they never would. And maybe it was time I stopped asking them to. That night, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in years, one with the mortgage statements, transfer slips, and one very important legal clause I'd quietly inserted when I paid off the debt. Courtney had no idea. Neither did my parents. But soon, they would. I drafted the clause on a stormy Thursday night, the day before I transferred the $60,000. A friend from work had warned me, don't just give them the money. Put it in writing. At the time, it felt cold. Transactional. But a tiny voice in the back of my head whispered, protect yourself. So I did. I added a stipulation. In the event that my parents ever decided to transfer ownership of the house, my investment had to be considered. They signed it reluctantly. You don't trust us? My mom had asked. Of course I do, I'd smiled, it's just business. I buried the folder in a drawer under old tax returns and paid utility bills, hoping I'd never have to look at it again. But now, it sat on my coffee table, its weight far heavier than its paper could justify. I traced my finger along the signature line, right where my parents had both signed. Right where Courtney had absolutely no idea her fantasy crumbled. The next time I visited, I came prepared not with groceries or lawn gloves, but with a plan. Courtney was in the kitchen, barefoot and laughing, holding a mimosa. Mel, you came early. Want one? I glanced at the bottle of champagne sweating on the counter. Is it Tuesday? I asked, deadpan. Brunch day, she sang, twirling. I looked at Mom and Dad, who were setting out plates like this was completely normal. Like a grown woman with no job and no rent was just part of the family routine. We were thinking, my mom said, it might be easier if Courtney just stayed here for a while longer. Maybe even officially moved into your old room? My throat tightened. What about her apartment? I asked. Oh, she let that go months ago, Mom chirped. It wasn't safe. I blinked. You mean the one I helped her lease? She waved me off. It's not a big deal, honey. That was the moment I realized I'd been erased. My contributions didn't matter. My sacrifices weren't worth remembering. And if I didn't act now, Courtney would skate into this house, and maybe even take it for herself. I smiled tightly and said nothing. But that night, I emailed my lawyer. Hey Marcus, remember that clause in the promissory note I asked you to add? He replied within 10 minutes. Yep. You want to enforce it? I typed back one word. Yes. I didn't want to sue my parents. I wanted them to see me. But the only language they seemed to respond to anymore was paperwork. A few days later, a formal letter was delivered to their mailbox. It wasn't aggressive, just a reminder of the agreement they'd signed and the legal weight behind it. The house couldn't be sold, gifted, or transferred without my financial contribution being considered. The clause also gave me the legal right to file a lien on the property if necessary. When I got the call from Dad, he didn't even say hello. What the hell is this, Melanie? I could hear Mom crying in the background. You're putting legal claims on your own family? I took a breath. You mean the house I saved with my entire savings? The one Courtney's now planning to inherit like she bought it with itsy glitter? Silence. Then, she's your sister. I know, I snapped, before softening. But I'm your daughter, too. 3 days passed before I heard anything. Then I got an email from my mom. No greeting. Just. We never wanted it to come to this. But if this is how you feel, maybe it's best if you don't come around for a while. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears welled in my eyes. They were choosing her. Again. Even after everything. I sat frozen, until something inside me hardened. No more rescuing. No more weekend visits. No more silent giving. They wanted Courtney. They could have her. But they'd also have to face what came next. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter in the mail from the county clerk's office. Courtney had tried to file a deed transfer. She didn't know she'd just triggered the clause. And now, the house was mine to freeze, fight for, or foreclose. I stared at the envelope like it might explode. My hands shook as I broke the seal, pulling out the thick stack of legal paperwork from the county. There it was, in black and white, an official notice of intent to transfer the deed of my parents' house. Filed by none other than Courtney and Carter. The audacity almost made me laugh. My sister, who hadn't held a steady job in over 2 years, had waltzed into a government office and tried to put my house, into her name. No call. No conversation. Nothing. Just a blind belief that she was owed everything. I forwarded the paperwork to Marcus, my lawyer. 10 minutes later, he called. She didn't just trigger the clause, he said, his voice tight with disbelief. She invalidated the whole transaction. Your parents signed away any right to transfer ownership without your written consent. We can file an injunction today. I nodded, pacing my living room. Do it. I'd never been someone who wanted to fight. But I was done being the family's invisible backbone. They pushed me out, and now, they were going to learn what happened when the one person who always held things together finally let go. By the end of the week, the injunction was filed. A court date was set. I didn't go to my parents' house. I didn't answer their calls. Courtney blew up my phone with text after text. You're seriously doing this? Wow. Bitter much. You need therapy, Mel. For real. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked into the courtroom a month later wearing my navy blue suit, hair pinned back, holding every receipt, bank transfer, and legal form that proved this house existed in its current state because of me. Courtney sauntered in 10 minutes late, wearing heels too tall and a smirk too wide. My parents sat behind her. They wouldn't even meet my eyes. The judge was a calm, grey-haired woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could cut steel. She reviewed everything. Listened patiently as Marcus explained the clause, my financial role, and how my sister had violated the agreement. Then Courtney stood, all sugar and sass. Your Honor, it's a family home. It was never about money. My sister just doesn't like me living there because she's jealous I'm close with our parents. That's when I stood up. No, Your Honor. I'm not jealous. I'm exhausted. I've been paying for that house, taxes, maintenance, emergency repairs, for over 2 years while being treated like a stranger. I didn't ask for praise. But I also didn't expect to be erased. The room was silent. The judge looked from Courtney to me. Ms. Carter, she said slowly, you filed a legal deed transfer on a property you have no financial claim to, and your parents' prior agreement makes it clear your sister's investment must be addressed before any ownership changes. Courtney's face dropped. Judgment was swift. The deed transfer attempt was voided. Any future transfer would require repayment or legal reassessment. And as for me, I now had legal grounds to request ownership shares or compensation. The house wasn't just theirs anymore. It was mine too, whether they liked it or not. When we walked out of the courtroom, I expected anger. But what I didn't expect was tears. From my dad. He stood there, arms crossed, eyes red. You really went through with it, he said, voice hoarse. I had to, I whispered. You gave everything to her, and left me holding the wreckage. He looked down. My mother said nothing. Just turned away and followed Courtney, who stormed off like the whole world had betrayed her. That night, I got an email. Short. Bear. From Mom. We didn't realize how far things had gone. Maybe it's time we talked. Just you and me. But what she didn't know was that I'd already made a choice. One she couldn't take back. The email sat unread for hours, even though I'd opened it at least a dozen times. My mother's words, short, hesitant, too late, echoed in my head like a distant knock I couldn't bring myself to answer. Maybe it's time we talked. Just you and me. A year ago, I would have jumped at that invitation. Rushed to their doorstep with warm banana bread and a heart full of forgiveness. But now, I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt hollow. That's the part no one tells you. Betrayal doesn't always burn. Sometimes it numbs. Sometimes it freezes your chest so deep, even the people who once tucked you in at night feel like strangers knocking on the glass. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I clicked reply. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I typed, deleted, retyped, paused. Finally, I wrote. I needed you to protect me the way I protected you. And you chose her instead. I'm not coming back. I didn't even sign it. I hit send before I could second guess it. The next day, I woke up early. The sun was barely rising, the streets still wrapped in fog. I pulled out the old photo album from my closet, the one I hadn't touched since I moved out. I flipped through each page slowly. My 5th grade spelling bee trophy photo. My college graduation with my parents on either side, smiling so wide you'd think they were proud. Courtney wasn't even there that day. She'd missed my speech because she had plans with her boyfriend. But they never talked about that. Never noticed who showed up. I closed the album. I had work to do. The next 2 weeks were a blur. I met with Marcus again and started the legal process to file a partial lien on the house. I didn't want to take it from them. But I wasn't going to let it slip through my hands while they pretended I was just a bitter ghost who showed up to ruin brunches. I also started looking at investment properties. If I was going to walk away from that house emotionally, I needed to build something that was mine. Not inherited. Not attached to anyone else's name. Just mine. One evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened to it, my breath caught. "Hey Mel, it's Dad." A long pause. His voice cracked. "Your mom told me what you wrote. I didn't want it to come to this. We thought we were doing the right thing, keeping the peace, helping Courtney. But maybe we didn't see what it was costing you. I don't know how to fix it. Just, I miss you, kiddo." I played it again. And again. Not because I believed him. But because it was the first time he'd said anything close to regret. Still, I didn't call back. The truth was, I had nothing left to give them. 3 days later, I received a letter in the mail not from my parents, but from Courtney's lawyer. She was contesting the clause. And she wasn't just trying to fight me now, she was threatening to sue. The envelope was thick, too thick to be anything casual. Legal weight paper, a firm corner where a notary's stamp had pressed through. The second I saw it, I knew Courtney was done playing games. The return address wasn't hers. It was the name of a law firm I recognized from one of those highway billboards, "We fight dirty, so you don't have to." Classy. I sat down, peeled it open, and read the first line aloud. "Petition to nullify private family agreement due to emotional duress and lack of consent." My breath caught halfway through. She was accusing me of manipulation. The girl who once pretended to sprain her ankle to get out of mowing the lawn was now claiming I coerced our parents into signing a document that saved their house. I laughed, bitter, loud, and full of every insult I had swallowed over the last 2 years. Marcus was less amused. "This is a scare tactic," he told me over coffee the next morning. "They're hoping you'll walk away. But the good news is, they don't have a leg to stand on. The agreement is clean. Notarized. Your parents signed it willingly, and it's been in effect for over 2 years without dispute." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But this was my sister we were talking about. She'd twist anything. Cry on cue. Turn her mistakes into sob stories. And my parents. They always fell for it. Still, Marcus filed a countersuit requesting full recognition of the lien and a cease order on any further deed manipulation attempts. "It's not war," he said. "But it's a warning shot." My phone blew up that night. Missed calls from Mom. A string of texts from Dad. "We didn't know she was going to do this. Can't you just talk to her? This is tearing the family apart." And then, the one that finally made me cry, "Melanie, we need you to be the bigger person." Again. I stared at it for a long time. Bigger. Always bigger. That had been the story of my life. Let Courtney crash the car and get forgiven. Let her drop out of college and get comforted. Let her spend her days sipping mimosas in the house I saved, and still, I had to be the one who forgave, the one who bent, the one who carried it all. I turned off my phone. For the first time in months, I drove to the beach. No plan. No people. Just me and the crash of waves. I walked until my feet hurt, until the wind tangled my hair and the salt stung my eyes. And then, standing there in the dusk, I whispered something I hadn't dared say until that moment. "I don't need them anymore. Not for validation. Not for permission. Not even for love. I had spent 33 years chasing scraps, hoping one day someone would say I was enough. But I was enough. I was the woman who paid off a $60,000 debt without blinking. Who built a life, a career, a reputation from scratch. Who protected people who wouldn't even protect her back. That night, I started writing. Not a legal document. Not a response to Courtney's threats. A letter to myself. Just before midnight, a knock echoed at my door. I opened it slowly, and standing there, soaked from the rain, was my mother. In her hand, she held something I never expected, a folder with the original agreement. Her eyes were swollen. Her voice was trembling. "We need to talk. Just you and me." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. My mother stood there on my porch, clutching the folder like it was both a shield and a confession. The rain matted her hair to her face, her jacket soaked through. But she didn't seem to care. I couldn't remember the last time I saw her cry. Not when I moved out. Not when I sent the money. But now, here she was, broken in a way I didn't recognize. "I almost didn't come," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Your father said it would only make things worse." But I couldn't sleep. I stepped aside and nodded toward the couch. She walked in like someone stepping into church, quiet, reverent, afraid. I brought her a towel, but she didn't reach for it. She just sat, folder on her lap, staring at her hands. "I read everything," she said finally. "Every line. Every transfer. Every date." I didn't realize how much you really did." Her voice cracked. "Or maybe I didn't want to." My throat tightened. I stayed standing. She looked up at me, eyes wide and bloodshot. "Your sister said it didn't matter. That family shouldn't need contracts. But I see now it wasn't about money. It was about being seen." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You were always so strong, Melanie. So quiet, so capable. And we leaned on you because we knew you'd never break. And then when Courtney started falling apart, we gave everything to her because she needed it more. Or maybe we thought she did. But what we were really doing was stealing from you. Piece by piece." She reached out, and I stepped back. Not to hurt her. Just to breathe. I hadn't heard these words, any of these words, in years. Part of me wanted to collapse into her arms. Another part wanted to scream. "I wanted you to choose me," I said quietly. "Just once. When I saved the house. When I covered the taxes. When I showed up over and over again while Courtney played victim and you treated her like a hero. I wanted you to look at me the way you look at her. Like I was enough." "You were," she said. Her voice broke on the word. "You always were. But you didn't act like it." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I know." Silence stretched between us. I finally sat down across from her. Not too close. Not yet. But close enough. "I can't undo what's been done," she said. "But I can do one thing." She opened the folder and pulled out a notarized form. A signed declaration of debt recognition. It formally acknowledged the full repayment due to me and voided any attempt to transfer the deed without my written approval. It was stronger than the original agreement. It was airtight. And this time, it was initiated by them. "I made your father sign it," she said. "He's angry. But he'll get over it." I stared at the document. Then at her. I wanted to believe this was a turning point. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of something, but the beginning. "You can still be angry," she added. "You can say no. But I needed you to know we're not siding with her anymore. Not after what she tried to do." I nodded slowly, the words hitting me like soft punches. This wasn't an apology wrapped in excuses. It was a surrender. A truth she couldn't outrun anymore. Just as my mother stood to leave, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face draining of color. "It's Courtney," she whispered. "She says she's coming over to your house now. And she's not coming to talk." The room fell still. I felt it in my chest first, a sharp coil tightening beneath my ribs. My mother's fingers trembled around her phone as she handed it to me. The message was still on the screen. She's mine now. I'm coming over. Hope she's ready to lose everything. She. Me. Courtney had always referred to me in third person when she was angry, like saying my name out loud might poison her. But this wasn't petty. This was a threat. I handed the phone back and stood. You need to go, I said calmly, grabbing my keys from the table. My mother blinked. Melanie, please. I'm not doing this with you here. You want to fix things? Let me handle her my way. To her credit, she didn't argue. She pulled her damp coat back on, still clutching the folder like a lifeline. At the door, she turned. Whatever happens tonight, I'm proud of you. It landed somewhere deep inside me, but I didn't show it. I simply nodded and closed the door behind her. The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. I walked to the kitchen, turned on the kettle not because I wanted tea, but because the sound grounded me. My hands were steady. My thoughts sharp. I wasn't the girl begging for scraps anymore. I was the woman with receipts. Boundaries. A future. And then, the knock. Not timid. Not hesitant. A pound. I opened the door to find Courtney in full performance mode. Wind-whipped hair, makeup streaked like she'd forced a few tears for good measure. She shoved her way inside without a word. What the hell is wrong with you? She snapped. You really had to drag this into court. Sue our parents. File legal junk against me? Who does that to their own family? I closed the door behind her and leaned against it. You tried to steal the house, Courtney. She scoffed. Steal? Please. They were going to give it to me anyway. I actually spend time with them. I care about them. My mouth tightened. You live off them. You've always lived off someone. Oh, here we go, Saint Melanie with her savings account and her spreadsheets. Her voice rose to a mocking pitch. You think because you paid some bills, you get to lord it over everyone like you're some kind of hero? I saved our childhood home, I said coldly. And you tried to forge your name into a legacy I paid for. She laughed then. A high, bitter sound. You're so obsessed with being the good one. But guess what? Mom and Dad love me more. They always have. You're just the convenient one. The one who does things. But no one chooses you, Mel. The words should have stung. They didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I saw her clearly not as the favored sister or the golden child, but as someone terrified she'd lost control. I stepped forward, voice low. You're right. They didn't choose me. But I choose me now. And this house. It's not yours. Not today. Not ever. She went quiet. Her eyes darted toward the folder still sitting on the side table. Her mouth opened, maybe to argue, maybe to beg. But she didn't get the chance. I pointed to the door. Leave. If you ever set foot on my property again, I'll file a restraining order. And this time, I won't blink. She looked at me for a long time, searching for the girl she used to push around. But she didn't find her. She left without another word. The next morning, I got a letter in the mail, not from Courtney. Not from my parents. From the bank. The one that still held the original mortgage lien. Inside was a notice I never expected to see. A check. $60,000. From my parents. And a note, scribbled in my dad's handwriting. You were right. We were wrong. This is yours. I held the check in my hand like it might vanish. The paper was still warm from the mailbox sun, the handwriting unmistakably my father's, slanted, shaky, but deliberate. For a second, I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I just stood there in the hallway of my own home, staring at a number I never thought I'd see again. $60,000. Returned. A full circle. A silent apology written in ink instead of words. Beneath the check was a single sheet of paper. Typed. Signed. It wasn't legal, not officially, but it was something deeper. It was acknowledgement. My father had written it himself. Melanie, we failed you. You were never loud, never demanding. But you were always there. You did what none of us could do, and we didn't honor that. We let Courtney's noise drown out your loyalty. We let comfort blind us to sacrifice. We chose wrong. This check can't fix what we broke. But maybe it's a start. Love, Dad. I read it 3 times before I cried. Not just because the money was returned, but because for the first time in my life, they saw me. Not as the reliable one. Not as the fixer. As their daughter. As someone who mattered. Someone who deserved to be chosen without bleeding for it. I didn't deposit the check. Not immediately. Instead, I placed it on my dresser, right beside the photo of us from years ago, me, Courtney, Mom, and Dad in front of the porch, all smiles. It felt like a relic now. A memory frozen in a world that no longer existed. And maybe that was okay. 2 weeks later, I called my lawyer. I want to release the lien, I said. Marcus hesitated. You sure? Yeah, I nodded. I don't want to own the house. I want to own my peace. We drafted the papers, filed the release, and I signed them with a quiet sense of freedom. I wasn't letting go because I lost. I was letting go because I'd won. Not the house, not the court battle, but myself. My strength. My place in the world that no longer needed their validation to feel solid. I still didn't talk to Courtney. There was nothing left to say. She stayed with a friend for a while, then apparently moved out of state. Her name came up in passing when Mom called every now and then, but only briefly. No drama, no pleading. Just space. My parents, though, they tried. Small steps. My mom started texting again. Pictures of the garden. Questions about recipes. My dad mailed me a book once, one he remembered I loved as a kid. To Kill a Mockingbird. Inside, a sticky note read, "You were always more scout than we gave you credit for." We met for lunch once. Neutral ground. No talk of money or mistakes. Just soup and bread and the gentle awkwardness of people trying to rebuild something that cracked down the middle but didn't completely fall. And me. I bought a little place of my own. Nothing grand. A cozy fixer-upper on the edge of town with creaky floors and wild ivy along the back fence. I painted the walls myself. I picked the furniture piece by piece, not for anyone else, just me. I hung my own photo in the hallway. Not a family portrait. Just me, standing at the beach, wind in my hair, eyes forward. Because that's where I was headed now. Forward. I don't know if my family will ever fully repair it. I don't know if Courtney will ever understand what she tried to take. But I do know this, I saved that house. And then I saved myself. And that was worth more than $60,000 ever could be. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit like, because every click tells the algorithm this kind of truth matters. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been the quiet one holding everything together? And if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We tell real, emotional stories that hit deep, and the next one might just be yours. Remember, sometimes walking away doesn't mean giving up, it means finally choosing yourself.